Jerry Magee, sales coach, aka the mentor, right? Somebody that, I wish I met you.
What you used before,
which is the producer whisperer.
I love it. Yes,
I got to add that to your signature.
There we go.
But it's funny, we've now met 4 months ago, and every time we connect, and obviously seeing you guide and mentor myself and other producers in the office, I wish I would have met you 15 years ago. I didn't know you existed. I always joke around, and we talked a little bit earlier, kind of the reason why I got into the business and how I started with my two business partners, with Fernie and Doug. And I'll give you the short story is we didn't find any mentorship when we were 24, 25 years old.
Sure.
It was kind of fish out of water. And that kind of pushed us to get uncomfortable, which is great that it happened. But looking back, the sales cycle, the pains, the ups and downs of having to learn insurance, how to close, just kind of all those landmines would have been a lot less painful if I would have met you 15 years ago.
I'm not sure you want to meet me 15 years ago. Yeah. Luis, what I've found in this industry is that there's a void of leadership and there's a void of really effective mentoring. And some agencies do it better than others. And one of the things I love so much about Hub is teamwork is not a cliche in our organization. Collaboration is not a punchline. It's really a way of life at Hub. And I really see my role as a conduit to help other people be more successful. The gentleman who had my role prior to me starting at Hub, a gentleman by the name of Chris Garner, who's fabulous. Many of you who will listen to this know Chris, and he's an amazingly talented individual who's now a CSO out in Arizona. And Chris was part of my interview panel. And Chris asked me, Jerry, what do you think this job is? And I gave him what I thought was a 10 out of 10 answer. It was probably a 5-minute answer. I was hitting all these key buzzwords and phrases.
Nice.
And I sounded like an HR manual. And he said, Jerry, that's a really good answer. He said, let me tell you what this job is. This job is helping other people become more successful. And I'm so glad he said that, because that framed for me what this role is. So I get up every day fired up to work with producers. You've got a great team here who I love working with. And I'm fortunate enough to work with producers all across Hub South, from Louisiana, Tennessee, the Carolinas, Florida, all throughout Florida, Georgia, Mississippi, Alabama, everywhere. And I help other people become more successful. And what I can share with them is my own experience, having been in this industry, having sat in that chair, but also the experience of others.
And I think that's the fascinating part as well, because going back to insurance in general, there's so many of us in the producing role, and we do it so different. There's not one way of doing it, right? I know there's some common attributes, which I wanted to really ask you specifically, but just the fascinating part about how everyone got into their role, how they developed their niche, how they developed their just kind of sales pitch. To me, it's one of the most fascinating parts. Why I like talking shop with insurance people across the board, right? Yeah. This is kind of going back to the mentorship angle. So many times we look at everybody as competitors, but the truth is, we're all, it's really an insurance. How many insurance conversations do you have with anybody else other than insurance? I always joke if wear a hat that you're an insurance agent, watch everybody run away, So when you get that common just experiences and kind of just overall mentality, there is a connection to it. So I think we're all connected in one way or another.
We're all connected, and it's funny you mentioned that. I think about the gentleman who helped me get into insurance. I was working for a large electrical wholesaler in their management training program, which sounds really great when you're 22. Do a management training program. That just sounds awesome.
It does.
Well, what that meant was I was making $18,000 a year and driving a forklift at a warehouse in Orlando, Florida. So that was sort of the start of the management training program. But this gentleman who was working for a competitor at the time said, you really need to get into insurance. So he helped to line up a couple of interviews for me. And I'll kind of get to the main point in a second, but the story provides context to what you were saying. And he got me an interview with an organization that was just coming down into Florida. They were a TPA, MGA, and they were expanding down the eastern seaboard and wanted a place in Florida. So he got me an interview, and I was able to get that job as a marketing manager. And I had no insurance background. I was a consumer of insurance, but I didn't know anything about insurance. This company paid for me, got my license, and I've loved the industry ever since. I'm one of those people. I love insurance. I love the people most importantly. And when I told this friend that I got the job, he said, "Well, congratulations and condolences." And I said, "Well, why is that?" He said, "Well, congratulations, you're going to do awesome." He said, "Condolences because for the rest of your life, you're going to have to tell people you sell insurance for a living." So, we all sort of, and the reason why I start every coaching call, and I did this with your team several months ago, I start every coaching call with, "Tell me your story. How did you get into this business?" Because no one dreams of when they're 7 or 8 years old on the playground saying, "I can't wait to grow up and sell insurance."
That is, but that's also the reason why there's such a great opportunity in this business. I joke around, well, for at least from the production standpoint, right? Being a salesperson, a producer, this is a secondary career for all of us. I would say 99%.
Sure.
You got the one person who grew up wanting to be a State Farm agent, I guess. But for me, it's motivating because we're not competing against, high level, let's just say high level attorneys who went to Ivy League school, right? Investment bankers, Wall Street. We're competing against, right? Us guys who fell into this business. Now, if you can just kind of make a click, you're easy to scale. There's so much opportunity.
There's so much opportunity. There's a gentleman I work with, a CSO in Mid-South named Dan Height, and Dan actually has his law degree. And he chose.
Don't tell him I said that then.
Yeah, I know. We'll have a little lawyer segment later. And Dan says frequently that the cost of entry in our business is very low. There are 500,000 commercially licensed insurance agents. So there are a lot of us out there, but the ones who truly excel, the ones who are receptive to coaching, the ones who are receptive to having a mentor like you do with your team here, as do others, the expectation of our industry is so low that I really take it as incumbent upon us to elevate our industry.
100%.
To increase the professionalism, to retrain our buyers to what's available, not in terms of price. Price is simply the last line on a proposal.
It's the overall experience.
That's right. There's a buying experience. There is a value that we bring as licensed insurance agents, brokers, that provide value, that provide counsel. We get paid for our insight. We don't get paid for our revenue is a derivative of commission, or of premium, but we're paid for our insight. That's how we differentiate ourselves from the competition.
Well, let me ask you, in your experience, and this is kind of just, what is the biggest attribute you see that makes a producer successful in our industry?
I did a presentation for the team in Florida a couple months ago, and I have the 3 C's. And the first C is commitment. You have to be committed to this business. And I shouldn't say can't or should or absolutes like that. That is as absolute as I can get for success in this business. This can't be something you're trying out. This can't be something that
you're doing part-time. You just want to get your license to refer the business.
You got to be all in.
100%.
You got to be all in, that I am committed to this industry. I'm committed to this career. This is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to give it 100%. I don't believe in 110%. I know a lot of people say, well, 150%. No, 100% is the most you can do. So be committed. Number 2 is you have to be consistent. You have to show up every day, on the good days, on the days when you have to deliver a 20% increase, on the days when you get a non-renewal, on the days when you get a cancellation, and on the days when you get the big binding order. You have to be consistent. You have to show up. My father, one of his key phrases, and if my brother listens to this, he'll be laughing when he hears this. My father used to say, "Did you put the time in?" You have to put the time in. You have to be committed. You have to be consistent. And kind of a new wrinkle on the third C is you have to be curious. We can't make assumptions about our buyers. We can't make assumptions about the marketplace, about our prospects. We have to be curious about how are they getting from point A to point B without us? What is life like for that buyer? We have to be curious and empathetic to be able to relate to them so that we can give them a different buying experience.
And that's where you can identify the opportunities, right? Then
100%.
Then being curious eliminates from being selling insurance to providing solutions for the clients.
Yeah, we don't deliver lectures. Now, some of the people who I coach would say that I love to lecture. I really don't. I believe in a selling format that's conversational. Too often, we have producers who are trained, they're told to ask questions, so they go in there, they ask questions, but it's more like an interview or an interrogation. That's not effective. Our clients and prospects have been through that. We want to have a conversation with them, and a conversation involves effective, open-ended questions, not closed, open-ended questions that allow a conversation. That way, we're receiving information from our prospects. And, by the way, we're there to educate them. Their time is valuable. So if we go in there with insight, with knowledge of their business, with knowledge of their industry, and ways that we can help them, where they can rely on Hub's capabilities and resources, that's when we see a lot of wins.
And to follow up on your point regarding the 3 C's, it also leads to kind of the first point too. Like, is there any sort of attribute as a person to be successful in sales? Like, is it just, everyone says, you have to be able to deal with rejection, right? That seems like it's a very open, easy kind of way of putting it. But what's kind of that one characteristic that someone should have to get into this business? Is it just, I always use the word courage. Is that kind of the ultimate factor?
I think courage is a good one. A lot of folks may have thought that one of the C's was going to be competitive, and you're an athlete.
I was trying to guess too. But
I played football in college, and most people say they ask if I was a kicker. No, I'm actually bigger than I appear on film.
I got to attest to that.
Competition is a big deal, and I wish I had $1 for every producer who told me, I really hate to lose. Well, show me somebody who does enjoy losing. No one likes to lose. Everyone wants to win. So I kind of put that in the category of that's under the umbrella of no kidding. That's a given. Nobody likes to lose. Everybody wants to win. But do you have the ability, the resiliency, the persistence? That's what the grit. I know Trey Biggs, who's our corporate CSO, talks a lot about grit. And I've done some research on it. I've read some books about grit. Grit is difficult to really say precisely what it is.
It's not very tangible, right? It's multiple characteristics.
Yeah, you just know it. You know it when you see it in somebody.
And you just keep going. You get up. You get up and keep going. Being consistent. Back to one of the first C's.
You bounce back. You take the good days with the bad days. You battle. You push through. That's how you. Competition is. If you study coaches and coaches who, regardless of the sport, coaches don't talk about wins and losses. Nick Saban had a famous motivational speaker come and talk to his team this past preseason, and he said, "You can talk about anything you want except wins and losses," and this was a very experienced motivational speaker who knew exactly what he meant. They're not talking about wins and losses.
That's just the result, right?
Process. Yeah. They're talking about process. What are you doing that is going to allow you to be in the position to win? And that's what we're trying to do with our producers. One quick story, Luis, that I'll share with you. There's a producer in Florida, and he had a tough year in 2021. Did not hit his goal. He was significantly under goal. And every coaching session I had with him, we reviewed pipeline. We reviewed his prospecting. We reviewed his centers of influence and his network. He was doing all the right things. His process was there. He wasn't getting the results. Well, fast forward to 2022, he's already qualified for Sharp. He's going to more than triple his new business goal. And what I said to leadership in a meeting a couple months ago was, he didn't change. Did he get some great coaching from me? Probably. No, but his process stayed the same. His results changed, but he was doing the right things. And I so firmly believe that. And because I've seen it and you've seen it in your career. And that's why I'm so passionate about this role and so passionate about what's available as an organization, what we can do when we get more folks who are operating at full capacity like that.
I like to call it momentum. all those little things, and from personal experience, and now I'm trying to articulate it in another way, right? For all the producers, is all those little things you did 3 months ago, 4 months ago. That's why your book is growing.
That's right.
Once you stop doing those little things, now when you look around and say, man, my pipeline's, it's empty. What happened? It's
That's
those
right.
little things, that consistency, showing up every day, prospecting effectively. I think the first day we met, the biggest impact you made, and it's something that kind of like the light bulb, I think I said every day now, light bulb went off, was we just talked about prospecting. That's the biggest, I guess, not landmine. I'm trying to think of a better word to kind of explain it, but that's the biggest issue a lot of salespeople have. How to pipeline effectively. What is considered your pipeline? How do you prospect? Like those two things, that's kind of, it's your roadmap to being successful, but most people don't know how to do it.
Prospecting is our lifeline in this business. And actually, you and I were talking about this before we went on camera, and I was talking to Doug about it prior to coming in here. A producer's role is to generate an opportunity that didn't previously exist. If you really want to summarize the role,
I love that.
That's the role.
Because I think sometimes just we throw the word producer out.
Yeah.
It's almost like it's a title I think you should earn. But you hit it on the head. That's exactly what it is.
They generate an opportunity that didn't previously exist. That's what the role is. Now, we can call it a lot of things. I look at some business titles that call them their vice president of commercial lines. There's some that say commercial producer. There's some that say different COO, CSO. But that's what a producer does. They generate an opportunity that didn't previously exist. And I'll tell you the two main topics that come up in every coaching call. How do I get more new business? How do I maintain momentum? Momentum I'm so glad you brought up that word. Some people call it getting unstuck in a deal. They'll say, hey, I had this account and we had a great first meeting and now they ghosted me. I email them, I call them, I don't hear back. So deals getting stuck is a big topic, and prospecting is by far the first, second, and third top three of every call that I get. How do I generate more activity? How do I prospect?
It's a mindset now evolving into Hub, right? And then, again, 4 months into it, I'm going to talk about our company as well. It's such an entrepreneurial mindset. It's actually better than what I expected when we first got into it. You have this kind of expectations that it's a bigger company and it's so corporate. Not everyone is a deal maker. Everyone's quote unquote a producer. It's funny, when we met with Mark Cohen, he made a comment when we were talking early on this process. And he said, you haven't met a producer till you met a hub producer. And it's funny, I got access as a CSO. I'm getting access to the pipeline, the sales leaders, and I'm showing our staff, and it's kind of opening up our eyes. And I think the biggest difference between going maybe from an inbound sales approach to outbound, right? We got a little bit as far as prospecting goes. The truth is, all the big accounts, they're not calling you. They're being sought out by the top 5, right?
That's right.
Like, why would a CFO of a large company call you out of the blue? I mean, they got agents just tripping over themselves to go get you. So that's where you got to go. You got to go hunt. You got to go get it. You got to go kind of like now getting creative in how to prospect. Like, I kind of like a little bit of this forum. Obviously, we're doing it because education, right? We kind of use it as a vertical, but there's stuff that we get creative as well about creating educational videos. You'd be surprised how many videos we send on LinkedIn to specific prospects about a specific content. Like, how do you get a little bit different? So we kind of use it to get creative, but from a prospecting perspective, that momentum is real. Like, I'm fired up and kind of talk to our guys and hearing you and meeting other people at this company. I mean, it's almost easier for us to sell insurance now that we are Hub.
Well, what we can do is it's controlling the conversation. And our prospects and the marketplace in general, they don't like insurance. They buy it once a year and they're confused. And when I look at leaderboards and I look at people who are really moving the needle, I look at what you, Fernie, and Doug have created here at JAG, who were able to build something so attractive that Hub came in and was fortunate enough to make that acquisition. What works in this business is the opportunity to have a different conversation. So when you talk about prospecting, you talk about marketing, you talk about people don't buy insurance. We're not. Hub is a fantastic company. I'm the biggest cheerleader Hub has. people are not buying insurance because we have a hub, jacket pin. They're buying because of the quality of our people. They're buying because of the insight that our producers have, the insight that our subject matter experts have, the capabilities and resources that we have that are going to benefit our clients. That's why they're buying. They're not buying because of a certain color or, we decided to wear the alternative uniform, for this
Throwback
game type
jerseys,
thing. Yeah.
yeah.
They're buying because of our people. They're buying because of the intellectual capital. They're buying because of what we bring to the table in terms of services, capabilities, resources, and the like. That's what moves the needle. That's how you make a difference. That's how you go from wherever Hub was several years ago to now the 5th largest broker in the world. That's a big deal, but it doesn't happen unless we have people who are growing, who are building momentum in their careers, not just in production, but on the service side, on the subject matter expert side,
Yep.
in all aspects of the business.
Jay, let me ask you, statistically speaking, right? Your advice on producers I know everyone, and again, I kind of go back and forth on this. I grew up as a generalist selling insurance. Then honestly, let me take that back. I was generalist, then we became opportunistic because we're chasing premium, right?
Sure.
But in your opinion, is it more effective, for people to come up with a specific niche? Should they focus on one or two? Maybe even going commercial personal lines, EB. In your experience, should people cross over?
The short answer is yes. And I'm not sure which question I'm answering when I say yes. What I've seen is most effective is specializing, and specializing. And I grew up as a generalist when I was on the broker side. I was on the carrier side for 20 years. I was on the broker side for 6. Do the math. I've been doing this a long time. So I was a generalist. I was taught to capitalize on relationships.
Right.
And deploy the relationships effectively to write new business.
So you're backing into the sales, yeah.
So you call it opportunistic, you could call it relational selling, centers of influence, network, that type of thing. The value that I've seen at Hub by specializing is a couple of things that I think are vital. When you specialize, your confidence goes through the roof.
Agreed.
Because you are then an expert. When you're an expert, you have something to say, and you have that insight that I alluded to several minutes ago in one of the answers. So you've got expertise, you have the specialty, you have the confidence, and when you have that, you have a very specific target for your prospecting. That's the key.
I'm glad you said that, because as you were giving your answer, I figured that helps you, because again, going back to prospecting, it seems like a very vague answer, what I would do next. But if you can identify who you want to go after, it makes it so much easier to go after those specific clients.
Yeah. So if I'm having a coaching call with someone and I'll say, hey, what was the last 2 or 3 accounts you wrote? And they specialize in manufacturing. Well, guess what? Go call on 20 other manufacturers and you tell them, here's some success we've had in your industry. Here's what's working. Here's what I'm seeing. Here's what could help you. It's such a formula to more wins, and that's what specializing does. It's specific. You can target your marketing, target your prospecting. Your confidence goes through the roof, and you're an expert, so you can deliver insights.
No, I'm with you. Again, prospecting, the pipeline. That's kind of those 2 buzzwords. That's it. That's what makes us successful in this business.
That's right. Well, speaking of pipeline, I've got to get my pipeline plug in since we're doing this recording. If I'm meeting with a producer and we're looking at pipeline and they tell me that they have $100,000 in revenue in their pipeline and they're really happy about that, and I'll acknowledge it and say, well, that's great. What's your goal? So, well, my goal's 150 this year. I said, we have a problem.
You're short.
They said, well, what's the problem? I said, well, your pipeline should really be 3.5 to 4 times what your goal is at any given snapshot throughout the year. So what I see consistently is that pipelines are not where they need to be, and it's not. And we actually had this conversation yesterday on a sales call in two different hubs. The pipeline is both to identify new business opportunities, but more importantly, in this labor situation where we find ourselves, we have to know what's coming down new business wise so that we can staff accordingly and we can deliver on those insights and those promises and expectations that are sold.
During the process.
That's right.
The last thing I want to ask you, Jerry, too, is kind of one thing I'm trying to harp on as well. Kind of growing up, everyone always, and again, not having someone like you in my corner, it always felt like everyone was harping on your weakness, right? You got to get better at X. Now I'm kind of to the point where I'm 40, right? And now I'm telling everybody, just do what you're good at, right? Even if you're good at one thing, as far as being, your sales approach or your attitude or your message, I would advise, and let's get your opinion on this, just do that. Like, we focus so much on what we're not good at, but do the 80% you're good at and just stick to that.
Well, there's and people who I coach they're hearing me talk, and they can probably hear me in their sleep sometimes because I do repeat a lot of the same things, because I think that there's value in that, because I do have, I'll answer your question in a second, but coaching, I want to make sure I get this in. Coaching is individual, it's behavioral, and it's continual. It's tough to get all that from a mentor all the time. And that's part of what I love so much about Hub and this opportunity that we have. Now, part of that is I have the platform through coaching to talk about strengths or weaknesses. I like to identify more along the lines of what gives you energy, what takes away energy from you. John Maxwell wrote a book called Today Matters. And in that book, and I think it was 2004, 2005 when he wrote that, he talked about how we have this obsession as a country, and sort of our philosophy is to pound people down and to focus on our weaknesses. You need to work on this. If think about it as a student. If your worst subject was math, which was mine, my mother would say,
a lot of us,
do your math homework first. Well, you do your math homework first, and you're so exhausted and defeated from doing your math that you can't do the subjects you love. So to answer your question specifically, when we look at strengths, weaknesses, we'll just look at it from that perspective. If you're a 7 or an 8 at something, and you work to develop it, you can become a 9 or a 10. If you're a 2 or 3 at something and you work really hard, you might become a 4. Give me an organization with 9s and 10s instead of 3s or 4s. So I'm a big believer in encouragement, positive affirmation, building positive momentum, equipping people with belief and self-confidence so they can go out. This is a hard job.
Yeah.
It's a hard job. And we need to be bolstered in the areas where we do feel energized and where we do feel effective, and that will help our results.
Well, Jerry, I appreciate you doing this. I need you here more in the office, because every time you come, everyone kind of leaves. It's like the second half of the day, everyone's like kind of bouncing off the walls. I feel like people start
coffee. Is
it the coffee, or is it the Jerryisms? But thanks for doing this. I appreciate the support you give us and our team. We're looking forward to keep going together.
Well, I love working with your team, and thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you.